Nice to see you. Welcome to this event, Masterclass with Ásta Hafþórsdóttir and Margrét Einarsdóttir. They are, of course, very well known within the industry in Iceland. Margrét is costume designer and Ásta is a specialist in makeup. Correct my English if I should use another phrase.
It's called makeup and hair designer.
Yeah, yes. Makeup and hair designer, yeah. Ásta graduated from Dramatiska Institute in Stockholm. Margrét has a background in a lot of things. Literature, theater, yeah, and then started working in film eventually. Your first film in 2004 or 5, or yeah, and yours in 97, something like that. Yeah. So they've been in the business, in the industry for a very long time. I know both of them. I'm a big fan, and they have won several awards, both of them. It's several projects per year, big films, TV series in Iceland, but also in Scandinavia quite a lot. Both worked in Norway, both of you, in recent years. Yeah, and just very respected within the industry. I wish there were more people here today to go through us with through their method of working. And you've worked quite a lot together as well.
Yes.
Yes. And so we're gonna highlight 2 projects today. Gonna go through, see some stills. We're gonna see the trailers, and Ásta and Margrét are gonna take us through a little bit their method of working together. These are projects that you both worked on.
Yes.
Yeah. And your way of working together, your way of working with different and development projects, with different directors, and so on. Yeah. Anything you want to add in the beginning?
Yeah, maybe what we feel is important and necessary as for us as a creative dialogue.
Yeah, the creative dialogue between the 2 of you and the director and the
like the whole crew. It's a group sport. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, for those who have worked in film, we all know how important it is. It is a group sport, and it's really, bad costumes can ruin a film. It's really, and as we say, if we don't notice it and we buy the whole concept, then we know the job was well done.
A part of the storytelling.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, who wants to start?
Margrét, it all starts with a script. And reading the script thoroughly, and for me, my creative process starts there. You start to really see things in your mind, and it starts from within, not from outside, really.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it earlier also, that the approach is different. Sometimes it's built on a book, like the story we're going to tell, and sometimes you would like to read the book, and sometimes not, because the book might have too many influences. You want to have a clean slate when you start. So it depends on the project, of course. But yeah, we wait for the script. But sometimes the script also comes late, and we have a rough idea, but we start to think of the universe that we are going to create together.
And the 2 projects we're going to talk about today one is a movie based on a book, and the other one is a TV series that are based on a script by a movie script writer.
Yeah.
So it's two quite different approaches, creatively,
very different.
in a way. One is, the TV series is a world that we really needed to create from scratch, and it's called Welcome to Utmark, and it's HBO series we did with director Dagur Kári in Norway, 2021.
19. No, it's before COVID.
Yeah, 2019. Oh my God, time flies.
Yeah.
And the other one is Touch, based on a novel, and happens in 2 continents, 3 countries, and 3 time zones, really.
Yeah. And we're just gonna, because it's not very technical, it's kind of homey feeling here. So I have the photos you see on my iPad, and we were not able to make this into a slideshow, so I'm just gonna do this with my finger. But I'm just gonna let them run. This is our first, if we start talking about like how we approached Touch, this movie that was produced by Focus Features and Reykjavik Studios.
Is Iceland's entry to the Oscars this year?
Yeah.
And I mean, those 2 projects that you're going to talk about, they're by 2 directors that are very different.
Yes.
Icelandic.
Yeah, both Icelandic. Dagur Kári made the Welcome to Utmark, and then Baltasar is the director of Snerting or Touch.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, because we met and chatted before, and we also know each other, but we talked a little bit about this, and it will be very interesting to go into this deeper today. The difference between working with different directors, So yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
But if you start with Touch, I mean, Touch is of course based on real events. The atomic bomb in Hiroshima and the consequences of that, for example. So you really have to do your research thoroughly. You need to be extremely careful and respectful, and have a good dialogue with consultants, and where you want to go with it, and what the storyline is, and so that's also a big factor of what you are doing. Sometimes you have a huge creative license, but sometimes you need to be extremely careful.
Yeah, and that's also maybe the big difference between these 2 projects we're going to talk about today. In Touch, we are being respectful and being careful and all that, and telling a very delicate story, a touching story. And the other one, it's more creative and more fun and more humorous, you could say.
More fantasy, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think why we also said yes to being here today to do this conversation is to highlight how our conversation can really help the storytelling and help the characters and create this world, which I think is also different, in different parts of the world, how this collaboration comes into a film production or a TV series production. But we are lucky to be in this part of the world. Like the Nordic countries, they are very, I think, in my opinion, good at this, to bring this part forward.
Like to bring people to the production early.
Yes.
Or early on in the project, in the creation.
Yeah, and to allow us to have a voice.
Yeah.
That's not always the case, especially not in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, in the big Hollywood, not maybe the smaller ones. But yeah, so I think it's quite unique to have this way of working.
Yeah.
But
Well,
no, but of course you start with a blank page and you start to read the script and you start to map all the characters in the story and their arc and their story within the story, both from the inside and out. And that's kind of the first thing we do. And we have a deeper conversation with the director, and between the two of us, we start to create a very big world with try to limit each other as little as possible. You don't think about budget. You try to be quite abstract. You try to think outside the box and as wide as possible to create whatever and not ever. You know, don't limit yourself to anything. Let everything come that comes. Really.
Yes. Yes.
And don't censor yourself at all. Then
the good ideas come.
Then the good ideas come, because if you have a tunnel vision and you feel like you have some paint by numbers thing to do, then no bigger idea comes from that. It's hard to water that idea. So the conversation needs to get like deeper and bigger and more. We throw ideas. I throw idea to you, and you throw the idea back. But what if we add this to it, or should we go back to what we thought of earlier? And so it's a very ongoing, fruitful conversation, really. In the beginning.
So like, I mean, the stills we are seeing now, this is probably some like from the mood board, like the hair.
Yeah, I just want to say it's all very
touch,
because we couldn't line it up in the right order. We wanted to just show the general mood boards we did in the beginning before we started working on the characters. And this is because we were looking at 1960s London. This is what we kind of started with, because you also want to create a believable world in that movie. Not all movies, but in that movie. And I think also, I just want to add to what Magga was saying about this start of the conversation. It's really great if we feel like the director is open and has not kind of closed any doors on how he wants things to look or how he wants to do the character, because then I think characters sometimes in scripts are very how do you say, they already have leasing a description in the script, sometimes not. And even though
what they're wearing or how their hair is,
even if they have a description, it could still be like, you know, floating to see what happens. It could bring so many different dynamics to the character and the story, what of the choices that we make together.
And I mean, you have the script, and then the actor comes in later. Yes. Does that affect?
Sometimes they are already there.
Yeah, sometimes the actor is from the start, but sometimes you've had the conversation with a set designer, the photographer, the lighting person before you meet the actor.
Yeah. But I mean, if you, I mean, the actor's physique, it's, you know, like,
Absolutely.
it must affect sometimes, you know, your ideas. And
Yeah, I mean, I've done TV series that the characters are quite literally based on forms. So there's a triangle and there's a circle and there's a
yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that you will understand who's who. And I've done a TV series where I feel like, because it's a fictional thing, and it's a period piece, that I think of them as modern rock stars.
Yeah.
Just to be relatable in somehow. So I think this is the part this is a part of the process where you really need to think abstract, and you need to think outside of the box, and don't read the script literally. It's about the storytelling. It's about the arc of the character, not that it's written in yellow shoes or whatever. It's not really important at this stage, I feel.
I'm thinking if we should see the trailer now for Snerting, and then we can come back and revisit. It could be interesting for the audience to see the trailer and then to see the stills and where you were coming from, creating that universe.
Let's do that.
Anna, vinur okkar.
Já.
Megum við fá að sjá trailer hljóð? Það vantar trailer.
Kristófer, fólk í þínum sporum, það notar tækifæri til þess að gera hreint fyrir sínum dyrum.
Hæ, pabbi minn.
Já, ég á leiðinni til Lundúna.
Lundúna?
Ég að leita gamlum vini sem hvarf.
Sorry.
Christopher.
Christopherさん. And you met my daughter, Miko.
Dad says you want to be a cook.
He told you that.
Who's going to be the judge of that? Do you want me to come?
You can't be too tough on me, though. Why can't your father know about us?
Why does he have to know?
Viltu ekki bara fara að koma heim? Ég hef áhyggjur af þér.
Where did you say she lived?
The last time I knew it was in South London, 50 years ago.
Where's Miko?
It happened very fast. But they're gone.
Ertu í alvörinu komin til Japans?
Ekki að hafa áhyggjur af mér.
It's been a long time. What if you can't find her?
I'm not going back.
Æstir, Christopher.
Such a lovely movie. I almost cried. But I mean, for this movie, of course, there's a lot of, like Maka was saying earlier, things to consider and be respectful of the Japanese culture. Like we worked with a lot of crowd extras, and we were recreating this protest that took place in London at that time. So yeah, so when we are creating the characters and finding our way to them, we are also doing the research of the time in London, especially because it's period we're going back in time, right?
And what is very important for me, at least, and we spoke a lot about, is the background artists and the supporting actors. If they are really believable, and you create a believable world, you can go much further with the main characters, and you can cheat a little bit more with them if you have created a strong world around them.
Like to support.
The main cast.
It's almost like scenography. The crowd when you are in the streets and you are. It's almost it's a big part of the scenography. Have this.
I mean, if you only emphasize on the main cast and you slur with the background, it's never going to be believable. You will always be seeing something that takes you away.
Yeah. I mean, we have all seen films where, you know, what's happening in the background, the way people are dressed, their hair, something, it really, it's not convincing, and it disturbs us as audience.
And it never says on the credit, you know, oh, the crowd department didn't have a lot of money or time. You know, it doesn't, it's kind of, they expect us to do a good job, the audience. So if it's not a good job, it's most probably because they didn't have money or enough people or something.
Absolutely, the resources weren't there. But I mean, we also talked about earlier when we met, like, do you start with the universe, or do you start with the main character, or does it vary? Like, how do you build this, you know?
I think no two pregnancies are the same. So it really, really varies. Sometimes you don't have the main cast and you don't have the opportunity, and of course you can have the broad strokes of that. You can have an idea. Usually you have the idea of the broad strokes of the main characters, but you can go in further detail with the extras. So very often you would go, like I would go to a costume house, or I would start a production of making all the extras' clothes before I start building the main characters. I would say that that's usually the case.
So now you were scrolling. I mean, these were
I'm scrolling. I'm just.
This is
because we have so much material.
Yeah, no, it's just nice to connect in between, like while we're talking. You know, you were. I mean, I could see those were references for Egill.
Yes,
as the main, the lead.
And I mean, we can just drop in, visit him, right, for a little bit, and because he was very important in this movie.
He has hair. Yes. For those who know him, he's very famous, bold Icelandic.
Yeah, he's famous, bold
musician and actor and artist. So
he in the initial conversations with the director Baltasar, we of course talked a lot, had a lot of meetings about Kristoffer for this role, and because the actor / pop star / entertainer is a very well-known person in Iceland, it was important. But not, I want to say, not just because of that, that he is a well-known, but also because we wanted to create Kristoffer. Because we wanted to find this man, find this character, and like, where is he? Who is he? And why do we want to create the look that we wanted to create for him? And then we have to dig into his story, what happened between London and when he goes, the part we don't really see in the movie. I mean, you can of course describe the ideas about his wardrobe, but for the fact that I suggested for Egill Ólafsson, the actor, to have hair, is to both to help him to have to be someone else, and to create a softness in him, and it did. I think it did. It just, but it's a very delicate thing, you know, because you don't want to create something that takes too much focus or is strange, or especially not for the Icelandic audience. So I think that, of course, it was also in a dialogue with Egill himself, like what he felt that needed to. So it's a very delicate in this movie, very delicate thing. Yeah.
So he also took part in.
And
decision making and creating this. Yeah.
And I think we always try to have that dialogue. Sometimes the actors don't know that they can also have a voice, you know.
Yeah.
So that's important.
No, I mean, having worked in that field, you know that, I mean, a good costume and hair and makeup can make all the difference in supporting the actor in their work. And it can also be very, if they don't feel it's matching, then it can also, you know, so I imagine the dialogue is very important.
It is very important, and I think it's also important that the actors have a voice. And I think it's very important to listen to that instinct and try to incorporate that as much as possible. Without them overtaking our job.
Exactly.
But it's a very good dialogue, and it can be a very fruitful conversation.
Yeah. And I think sometimes the things that we create are so subtle. It can be texture, color, tiny little things, but that nobody notices or thinks about. But it just gives a feeling. Sometimes it's even hard to put words on exactly what we do, and that's also why it's sometimes very hard to fight for.
Because it's so subtle. And it has to do with áferð. What's that, like?
Texture.
Texture and exactly. So I'm curious to know, like, with snerting, like, where did you go? Did you, like, the palette, the fabrics, was there anything there that?
Absolutely. I mean, the 60s were more vibrant and bold, and maybe we tried to go as close to real London at that time. So we looked at photographers of the time, we looked at the music of that time, we looked at art from that time, and tried to incorporate the atmosphere. We also looked at the Japanese society in London at that time, and the world within that world, and of course reading the history of the people fleeing from Hiroshima because of the shame of the women trying to have children after that.
After the radiation.
and them being immigrants in London and trying to hide that, and Miko trying to fit in London, and there was a lot of thought put into that.
Because it's a very different world, the 60s in the West, and then the tradition and Japanese whole palette and you know. So I think it's very interesting, and then what you're saying about her trying to fit in, you know.
Yeah, and at the same time, we had a very deep conversation with the actors within that community on how the dynamics within the family are. And we try to incorporate that into our designs as well.
And how do you do that? How do you incorporate, for example, that into your design?
I mean, it's her hiding a very short skirt with a little longer coat, but showing her friend.
Also,
that she dresses differently when she's with her friends than when she comes to work. That she lets go of, what do you say, maybe expectations of her father when she's with Christopher.
But that was also a little bit out of our control, that we didn't really, because the friendships, Miko's friendships, we didn't see so much about, it was cut out. So we didn't, even though it was there, we didn't really see it.
No, but we did film it, and but it ended up on the floor.
Well, that happens.
Yeah.
You'll know. Yeah. Anything you want to point out specifically in the stills?
I'm just going to go into the stills here.
So now we're going to see stills from the film itself.
Yeah. I think.
But like with Christopher, I mean, it's his story, and I think it's maybe interesting when they meet for the first time. For example, he's wearing like a white T-shirt and and when they, in the end, he's also wearing like a white shirt. So
getting closer to who he was.
Who he was when they meet again in Japan, if they found each other again, and showing his kind of true colors. He's back home.
Yeah,
in a way.
Exactly. Yeah. For example, in that.
That's just one of our thoughts there.
Any more thoughts like that?
You
remember? You want to share
a lot of them?
Yeah.
I think, I mean, from my end, touch was maybe not the big character design. I mean, it was, of course, to work with Egill on his character, but it was a different approach. It was more about the texture and about the feeling and about the period and make it believable and
real people.
Yeah, real people. Yeah. And yeah, it's different than the other one we're going to show later, I guess.
Yeah, it's very different. More realistic as well. It's like at the same time, you know, realistic, and then you're creating this.
Yeah.
It's a film, so you have to create a universe.
Yeah.
It's always about making the whole, what do you call, like the snow globe, a complete world.
Yeah, absolutely.
And usually a world within a world. And
why it's going so slow?
I think it was also like on Touch, it was extremely important dialogue between the two of us and our set designer.
Yeah.
Sunda.
Yeah.
I mean, you can really sense that it's a whole.
Yeah.
It's like you can really feel in this film that there's been a good communication and you've co-created the feel of the film. And
she came to visit us and looked at our fabrics and our texture and our thoughts and tests, and we went to see her creations, her fabrics. We put them all together to create a very seamless world, and I think it really
it shows.
Yeah.
This is, I think, very interesting, you know, for people to know.
I mean, interesting, how it's interesting for me also to hear about how it's done, for example, in the US, in other projects. I'm not saying all of the projects, but with the big stars, it's a totally different approach. You know, it's a star who often decides how she or he is going to look. It's not a whole in the same way. And that often shows, not that I'm going to talk badly about other films.
And it varies, of course. I mean,
yeah, it varies, absolutely, yes. But to understand how it can be, how it can help, and how if it's allowed to have room and space and time, then it can,
Yeah, I mean, because when I read the script the first time, I try to just, after I've read it, I just try to remove all the dialogue, and I just try to picture how I can tell the story without words. How can I visually help the character, help the story to move forward? And from that, you need to move.
Yeah.
Put in the dialogue and deepen it, and I think that's maybe the main goal, is the storytelling and the believable character that you can.
Yeah, that's very interesting, and I mean, I can see how that works. You know, for costumes, that you focus on the story and the order of things, and you know, what you reveal when, and what supports, you know, the story, like you said, with the white at the end, or, you know.
I mean, it's never about my taste or someone being cool, or it's about trying to achieve the essence of a person, or a character.
Yeah, I mean, I always take the example of the Greek plays, you know, where the actors often played with masks, that they would leave themselves behind, and then they would go into the role and become somebody else. So it's the same thing. It's just in a very subtle way. And
I mean, that's the most wonderful thing about working in the cinema, is that you're a part of something much bigger. You know, you're creating, but you're still, you know, it's.
Yeah.
I mean, at times it's just magical. It is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, Touch was a good example of that. I mean, it was really a journey. It was an amazing collaboration within every department.
Yeah.
It was quite
touching.
Touching, yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's so many details. Which,
I feel very privileged.
To
have been part of it.
Yeah.
How was it to work in Japan?
fantastic. It's fantastic.
Yeah, except everything was very tiny. And this big man, Egill, we had this makeup van that was like, it was almost not a room for chair. And he's very tall and a big guy. So that didn't really work. But, yeah, it was beautiful, beautiful people. And yeah. And
He'll
it's
be back.
Yeah.
you know, and for him, I mean, like for Egill, when we have kind of set the look and we decided that this is the look, then you can start playing with small things. If it's like how you shave the beard, which length, like so many little details can help in creating something. Like his beard had these variations of gray, and we discovered with just taking away a little bit of black hairs by the mouth, it kind of lifted, so he was a little bit more happy.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just things that, of course, the audience don't think about, but we can explore together with actors, like what happens if we change this color or little things.
And that's why the prep is the most important time of for us.
Yeah, very important. Yeah.
I remember when I went to film school, one of my teachers was French and had lived in China. And she always described it as, you know, I mean, it's a cliche, but it's still true. So like the preparation is everything. Like, you know, you have to master, you know, the physique, how you like if you have a arrow and a bow, what do you call it in English? Yeah,
bow and arrow. Yeah.
Bow and arrow. You know, it's all about that. You have to prepare. You have to have the physique. You have to know the right position. You have to aim. You have to know how to do it. You have to have good equipment.
Yeah.
You know, it's not about the shooting. It's all about, you know, preparing for that moment, and then you shoot. So
then you might hit the mark.
Exactly. Then you might hit the mark.
And I think also a good example about prep is the last project we did together, which was a big TV series for BBC, 10th Century. And we were very eager to start our prep, and they kept saying like, but the scripts are not ready and the cast is not here. But the research, like for this era, and we knew what it was about. So we were just like hammering, like we need to start the research, because the sooner we start, the more ideas we have about the era and the time and the stories of these characters, the more ready we are when we get the actors in the script to, you know.
It's all about the foundation.
We have a question.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
First, thank you for being here and sharing your time and the film. I live both in London and I'm also half Japanese, so I was quite amazed about the details in it. And then by sake of the hair, I'm shocked because I don't know this actor. I'm shocked. One thing I want to ask, because it comes to the prep, and I want to ask this question from the very beginning, is the project like this cross three different culture and people work differently. How do you pace yourself in the project since you receive the script? And I know both like makeup, hair design, and costume design needs a lot of time. And how much time do you have with this project, a project like this?
Never enough.
And then when the actor, I guess you got the script before the cast is attached, or maybe the cast. Could you share some information on that?
On Touch, how long did we have? I mean, we started...
11 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's
in modern filmmaking. It's. I mean, you're prepping throughout the whole movie. Really. I mean, you have someone on set doing continuity, and I'm there when I have a new costume to present it and be sure that everything is going well and everything is working, and so on and so forth. But at the same time, I'm prepping. I'm doing fittings on other actors. But as long as I do have the foundation and we have created the world, it's so easy to get everyone into that world because you know the ground. You have you know everything about it.
Yeah.
And there's a common ground, there's a common reference, so between
Yes.
departments, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you don't have that, there are insecurities everywhere, and that creates a friction, and your focus is not where it should be.
And I also always say also that if I'm asked to do a movie or a TV series, let's say 6 months before, and then they tell me we only have 7-8 weeks to give you for prep, my head is already working. So they're getting maybe 3, 4, 5 months free work from me because I can't control it. And I mean, when we're into hard prep, we're thinking about it 24 hours a day. So it's really, the earlier you know about the project, the more the production gets value for the money, basically, even though they're not paying you.
Yeah, I think it's a clever way to get a lot of
yes
good ideas.
We're done without.
Yeah. These 11 weeks of prepping, and then when you were saying about the foundation built, like how many weeks in is foundation set?
I mean,
very different.
Yeah,
very different. The problem I find in the last years is that the cast is coming later and later. I think it's about agents, that agents are being difficult. But we might know about the actors even though they're not confirmed. So it's very...
But at the same time, like we did on King and Conqueror, we had put down the houses like the Earl of Wessex, all these houses that we were working on. We knew how they had to look, and then you create the character within that family. So you have the groundwork you work in, and then you have the characteristics of that, and you have decided on what characteristics you want to show and their story. And then it's more about the fitting more than anything else.
And I mean, for that specific project, it was, even though we really wanted to be creative and not have to be so authentic and true to, but nobody really knows exactly how it looked at that time. But
we decided not to worry about that too much.
And I mean, it's almost like they say when you are learning how to paint, for example, like you first have to learn to make the perfect drawings before you can become Picasso, right? So it's the same thing, that we do all the research and we learn as much as possible about how the world looked, but that's not necessarily what we want to recreate. We just want to know before we start being creative. And
if you know how it's, if you know the patterns worn, what's known, you know what rules you want to break.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, because we also have another project
that
we want to talk about. Playful. As from what I've heard from you guys.
Yes.
So I'm thinking, if we wrap up Snerting and we continue to welcome to Utmark, with the two of you maybe describing a little bit the difference between working with Baltasar and Dagur.
Okay.
Which one was more fun? Who was better? I mean, because you said they were it's different. I mean, of course, it's also very different projects.
Yes.
But I think, it must be very different working with different directors.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, some directors really want to be present in every fitting and have a dialogue with the actor and have control, like every thread in their hands. Other directors don't want to be present at all. They just want to see the mood board. They want to see the process. They want to see the result. And then you present it for them. And,
like you were saying, like some directors just want to say, yeah, this and that and that.
Yes.
And the other ones, they want to, oh yeah, this is the universe. Okay,
Yes.
great. Like, let's continue, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a mood board is a mood board. It's not a catalog to choose from. So, I mean, you create a mood board which is like an overall feeling of...
So this is not snerting
no,
anymore,
this is not
as you can see.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to describe really. It's hard to compare apples and oranges.
Yeah, sure.
But I mean, both Baltasar and Dagur want to meet the main cast. They want to have a deep dialogue and rehearsals, but both of them are not so interested in being in the fittings. They're both very trusting directors. I mean, I think they both said, we hire you to do this because this is your field and you're good at this.
Yeah.
And that's it's also a difference maybe between if they are actually involved in writing the script or not.
Yes.
It's a big difference because if you've been writing the script as a director, then of course you have maybe an image in your head already, which can be hard to break.
Yeah. So what are we looking at here?
These are mood boards for a main character in a TV series called Welcome to Utmark. We did with Dagur Kári in Norway for HBO, but you can see on Showtime today.
Yeah.
As I understand.
Yeah.
Has not been screened in Iceland, unfortunately.
No. Set in north of Norway, in Sami country, really.
Yeah.
And
more extreme characters, maybe?
Very extreme characters that we kind of made into a Western.
Yes.
And it's about a community there.
Yeah, a sheep farmer and a reindeer farmer who are in a constant fight about women and animals.
And one imports alcohol from Finland and Russia, and the other one is an alcoholic buying from him.
I think it's very hard to talk about this project without actually seeing the trailer first.
Yes, maybe we should see the trailer first.
I think we should see the trailer, yeah.
Was this the first project that you collaborated with each other?
No.
Yeah.
Get you thinking?
Anyone in the mood for dimming the lights and showing us the trailer? Yeah.
Les naturen. Faen ikke mye jeg trenger her i livet. Jeg trenger en kniv, en lavvo, et kvinnfolk og flokken.
Og en firehjulstrekker.
Prøv det artig.
Jeg går fra deg. Jeg er forelsket i en annen.
Hvem? Jeg skal slutte å drikke.
Det er så fint her. Naturen. Det er så vakkert.
Han Bilse skal få betale for denne sauen. Noen har gjort naturen urett.
Dette her, det er ansiktet til en fri kvinne.
Slår han deg? Og noen av dere føler dere kanskje tiltrukket av andre?
Ja.
Ja. Hvorfor er du her? Jeg tror at jeg hadde lyst til å være en del av et lokalsamfunn.
We're not doing porn, this is Norway.
Du holder på med sånn eksorsisme.
Maybe you should have had it in English.
There was no subtitles. What?
No, I couldn't find any.
It's pretty clear.
I couldn't find any with English subtitles.
No. And I mean, since we're focusing on costumes anyway, I mean, it was very interesting to look at it now from that perspective, I think.
Yeah.
You can really see, because I haven't seen the series yet. I have watched a couple of trailers, but not, and yeah, I mean, you can see very clearly how the costumes here are a part of the storytelling, especially the character, the characters, but in a completely different way from snerting.
I mean,
touch.
Yeah, and maybe in Utmark we didn't have to be so realistic, and it's not about recreating something real. So you can really heighten all the visuals. But within being believable, you have to buy the whole world.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's a very...
And I think like what we did there is that we searched. We just went like all over the place. Because when you read it, it's not like, oh, you get a clear visual in your head. It's just a very fun script to read, and it's funny and it's brutal and it's all in between. And the characters especially. And you just get so excited about like, where could this go? Mm-hmm. But I wanted to show this one first because to find her, this is the lead female character that goes between from the sheep farmer, the drunk sheep farmer, to the alpha male reindeer farmer, and she works as a cleaning lady and is struggling obviously a bit. And we searched and we tried different things and we made all kinds of mood boards and it was a very good example of how you cannot just put clothes on someone and then say like, oh, this is the character. It has to work. It has to be we didn't find her in the beginning. We tried all kinds of characters and we all agreed like, no, she's not here yet. She's not here yet. And then all of a sudden we nailed it. Mm-hmm. And this is also sometimes the way for us to work is to just try it and not just use a lot of time making the mood boards and then think you got it. Sometimes you need to just look for it and create different things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you always have to be willing to kill your darlings and start from scratch. If it's not working, mm-hmm. then you really need to track back. Mm-hmm. And not be set on something. Mm-hmm. You need to be able to look at the bigger picture and start from scratch, really. Yeah.
Keep an open mind and continue searching, and sometimes
not limit yourself.
It can also be just about waiting a little bit, and then you continue searching, and then it's
I think we had 6 fittings with her.
Yeah, and the difference between Baltasar from Touch and Dagur here is that Dagur was also in the same way, like, no, it's not there yet. Like he also needed it to be correct, and often had great inputs into what could. Maybe you have a character and it's a little bit too perfect. Mm-hmm. You just need to break it a little bit to make it quirky and maybe believable. Mm-hmm. Like if you have a man in a perfect suit and then he's wearing Crocs, for example. You know, that's one way of breaking
Yeah, I mean,
it.
we had a sheriff who steals, who is a gambler, has a gambling addiction, and steals from his wife and convinces her that she has Alzheimer, and so he kind of is never wearing a full police uniform. It's almost like a fake police uniform, just because he just can't.
Yeah.
Somehow he does have a sense of knowing that he's doing something wrong.
Yeah, he's not all the way through the good policeman. Yeah.
Yeah, and at the same time, we put her in looking like an angel.
Yeah.
So she almost has wings, and she's always more or less dressed in white, and it's really hard to steal from an angel.
Yeah.
So we try to kind of really.
It's one of my favorite projects that I've worked on because of the flora of the characters, how many, how different, how we could play with them to find the humor in it also, because it is a very dark humor. It's very typical Dag Kári and Kim, who wrote it with him. So we're always also looking for the humor in the looks. And
you mentioned also the bus driver. I thought that was really funny. With there's a bus driver.
There's a bus driver.
There's a bus driver.
There's a bus driver. He was very unhappy with his status in life, and he's like half a man at work. He doesn't really enjoy his work, so he's never fully dressed. He's always wearing like shorts, and he's wearing a vest and a t-shirt, but it's never a full garment. Somehow we felt like that would be the right way for him to portray that, but at the same time he's the man who was getting whipped. So he's covered head to toe in latex when he's at home, and wearing like woolen socks.
Okay. It's very Norwegian.
And some of the
complete.
When he's at home.
And then you have to find the balance also. Like, you get very excited about, oh, now we can be creative, and then you have to like really, because if you do that with all the characters, it becomes
it's a
caricature show, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
So you have to find the balance between like, okay, this is the guy, we can take like the bus driver and the goldsmith and the what's his name, the guy that, and they were all gambling together, and you know, it's just a small society. So it's to find the balance between the funny stuff and the believable stuff and the real characters. And even though sometimes the real characters looked ridiculous, but it was still not funny. So that's also, yeah.
Should we see the other clip from the DOP?
Yeah, see the other one.
It's a more serious.
It was
one,
a very nice collaboration with the DOP. It's a close conversation with him. It's funny how these two trailers give a totally different feeling.
Absolutely. More dramatic. And I mean, also you can see now, since we're discussing costume and makeup with no dialogue, and we just get to rest and watch you know, look. We have a better look at the characters, and it's a completely different feel. But I mean, from what I mean, maybe you don't realize it, but me listening to you guys talk about this, I can really hear and see that you had a great cooperation regarding both these projects. And you really know, you know, when you say something, you're like, yeah, we did that, and the other way around. And I mean, I know it's often good collaboration, but sitting here, it looks, you know, from the outside, when I look at you two together, it really, you know, and I can imagine also that people choose the two of you together as well, you know, from the results of what you've done.
Yeah, and I think that we started working together in Iceland. I think it was like a music video, probably, or something in the beginning.
Yeah,
with Stefan.
Yeah.
And we've grown a lot since then, of course. My background from the school in Sweden, it really teaches you to dig down into the script and do your research and you know, find the character. Very Swedish, by the way, like why does he do that? Why? It's very like, yeah, that's very Swedish. So that taught me that way of looking at it. And also I'm trained in theater makeup, which is also gives another depth to it. And then we have grown also from working abroad and working with others. And we know each other's strengths, and when we meet, we just know how to work together, which is great, you know.
I mean, what have you done? Like 4 movies and 2 TV series together or something? Yeah.
Feels like we've done a lot more.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but we speak the same language, and it's always like coming home, and it's a very effortless.
Yeah, most of the time.
Yeah, most of the time. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Do you disagree?
Like a good marriage, you know.
Good marriage, yeah. But I think it's also quite special because it's absolutely not always like this with these 2 departments. I worked with costume designers who almost find it offending that I talk to them or ask them questions or have ideas. And I think it's very important to have this kind of like that she can have ideas about the hair or the makeup or anything, and I can have ideas about that. It's like always floating both ways.
I mean,
but it's very common that it's very a clear line. Like you don't talk about my stuff, and you know.
Yeah, I mean, I often get like the question, what is she wearing? I will follow that.
Yeah.
And I just don't feel like that's the same way of creating a character.
No, sure.
And I think it's very important for me also not being inspired by other TV series or other movies and get only my inspiration from that. I think that's very limiting. And it's not a creative process for me. Sometimes after I have maybe created the world, I will look at something in that genre, but mostly I find it disturbing.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Yeah, it's better to do your research in other genres or in reality, or yeah, absolutely.
Create it.
Yeah, you have to make it your own. Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
And you wanna, I mean, the approach also, you wanna make it your own. like we talked so much about in King and Conqueror, that we wanted to create our universe, our reality, and I think that's a very good kind of always a good way to see it. Like it's not to copy, which is quite common that you copy something that has been done, and we're all basically copying, but we try to, and also
it has to be your copying.
and to also have a surprising element somewhere, so it's interesting. And I say this especially when I think about children movies, because I worked in several in Norway, and several of these children movies were based on either something that had been made before in the 70s or something, or a TV series that was in the 70s. Norwegians are very
Cinderella or something.
Yeah, like Cinderella, and then the tendency is to want to we have to do it the same, to look the same. I'm like, why? Why does it have to look the same? I mean, these are new kids. It's not the same kids as was in the 70s.
No.
And what's the fun in going to a movie and it's exactly how I expected it to be. That's no fun. You want to have an element which is like, what? I haven't seen this before. And who's that character? That's interesting. That's also something, even though it's a realistic movie or something, it's still like, can I squeeze it in somewhere, to have something that is interesting to look at.
And I mean,
you kind of know what maybe is expected, and it's a very good thing to just put that in a bag and throw it away, and then you can open it later.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I also came to my mind that costumes can be a punchline. Like I remember there's an Icelandic TV series, Afturelding. What's it called in English? I don't remember.
I don't remember.
It's the name of a sports team, and there's a scene where he's coming for interrogation, the main character, or kind of like an important meeting. He's been abroad, his first day in Iceland. And he's been in Denmark, which is warmer climate, believe it or not, than here. And he's wearing shorts. You don't really notice it. You see him, but you don't notice it. And then, he walks up the stairs, and the punchline is he's wearing Crocs. Like these kind of... because you mentioned the suit and the Crocs before, and... it's really
surprising element.
Yeah, surprising element, something quirky, something, I think that's a very interesting perspective.
Yeah, like
because you mentioned it with
the drunken farmer.
Yeah.
To enhance his hangover.
Yeah, constant hangover.
Constant hangover. We gave him Wellingtons that were like maybe 3 sizes too big or something.
Yeah.
So it was really hard for him to walk.
Yeah.
And it kind of created his way of being, posture, physique, and how hungover he was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like every step was difficult.
Yeah. Hi, there's some
questions. Yeah.
I have a question for Ásta, but a small comment to Magda about the touch. To the comment first, to make you nervous. I just wanted to tell you with the costume for the young female protagonist, it's interesting hearing today that a lot went on the cutting room floor with the friendship, but I am seeing it in the theaters. I love the scene where she and her friends are talking. I forget the brand, but someone says, "Is that a
Margrét?"
Yeah, Margrét.
Yeah, and so right away I see her world, and they're noticing what they're wearing.
Yeah.
Just, I'm glad that made it in. So that's the comment. And the question: could you talk a bit about Eyjolf's hair? I'm not enough of an expert to know what he would look like without, but was it an intuitive feeling that because the young character has so much hair, so well endowed? Was it from talking with friends our age who have no hair? Now, tell us more your process, how you felt. Was it analytical, intuitive?
trusting the director?
It was very intuitive, and I think I did compare the two of them a lot in the beginning. Looked at their noses, their teeth, like what is similar, what is not similar with these two. And I think the conclusion was that they were so different that there was no point in trying to make them. We even made a small nose piece for Pálmi to see if he could look more like the older guy, but it didn't really make a difference. And then you have to make your choices, like, okay, because it can also feel, how do you say, like, it can take too much focus. And but with Egil and his wig, I think maybe also, I think I knew from the beginning that this is the way we need to go with him because of the character, because the softness. I wanted the softness in him, and maybe a small part that I wanted to prove also that we could do it, you know, because there's been a lot of like no wigs in Icelandic movies because they were most of the time been horrible.
Yeah.
But I knew that it was possible and it would probably, you know, be very good for this character. Not that it would look cool, that it would look great, but it would just help this character. So basically that was, yeah, I think so.
Which it definitely does.
Yeah.
Yeah. You had the question?
Yes, I have like 3 questions, but I'll try. Yeah, so I'm from Lithuania. I'm a director, and my money job, I'm a casting director, and I'm also a journalist. So like, on my comment first, like I recently interviewed upcoming Lithuanian costume designers in film, and your approach seems to be really different. Not like really, but a bit different from what they have. So it's really interesting to hear. And my question is more to come back about the period film. Like, how do you approach maybe for both of you? Like, how do you approach period? Like, do you try to be authentic or how?
About period films, I try to study the period as thoroughly as possible, but usually I create my own world, incorporating maybe the essence. Maybe a good example would be like The Favorite, where you have the outline of the period, but most of the costumes in the Favorite are made from denim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can create the world within the world of your storytelling, because we're not making documentaries or trying to recreate the world. We're telling a story. So I aim to tell the story, and usually I want to break the rules doing that.
I think also it's important when you are doing a period, especially when it's closer to us in time, and there's actually a lot of photographic material that you can look through. But we tend to go and look at, okay, we're doing 1960s, let's look at 1960s, and forget that fashion traveled slower back then, because today, if something comes in fashion, it's all over. It's like, blah, it's bombarding us. So everybody like, oh, picks it up. But before, we didn't have all the social media and everything. So it took longer. And often the people that lived in poorer neighborhoods maybe, or the older people, they stuck to their 1920 or 1930 look for the rest of their lives. Both they used the clothes longer, and they, you know, so they were like, you could probably walk around the streets in 1960 in London and see so many different periods in the streets, because people couldn't afford to always buy new stuff, and yeah.
It had been a recession, it had been a war, people were poor.
Yeah.
It wasn't the big thing
Yeah.
at the time either.
So to make it believable and organic, I think it's important to kind of let it float more and.
But at the same time, sometimes you're working with real events. I did a movie about the terror attack in Norway. And the 22nd of July, and then you really need to stick to facts. You need to be respectful of the people who were there and the real characters that you're portraying, and then you really need to be thorough to try to make it true as possible.
But there was an element there, I didn't see this movie, but there was an element there, right, that you didn't use any blood.
No. There's one scene. There's one scene in that film that we use blood in, and that's a recreation of a photograph, like a real photograph of the aftermath. But in the island where the kids were killed, there's no blood. That's just in our minds.
And that's a kind of, if you can say, like a creative choice.
Yes.
That is.
And also maybe a part of being respectful somehow.
Yes.
Not to make it into a splatter.
No, it's not. It can't be.
Exactly. Yeah. It's very interesting.
Does that answer your question?
Do you have more questions?
Yes. Also, I want to ask, how do you collaborate with the casting department, especially when you work with actors?
Yeah.
Like I worked the first time on a period film this year, and there was some failures with the hair. I was treated a little bit, I think, by the makeup and some others. So yeah, how do you do that?
Yeah.
Or you leave on them to do their research, or you share yours?
Yeah. Share mine. Yeah, very important and a good question, because it's a battle, always a battle, and it's easier when you're doing big crowd scenes in London, obviously, because you have huge groups of people who does this for a living. So they just, between projects, they grow out everything. And in Iceland, you don't have that, so you have to take in people from modern 2024 with their modern look and try to make them look like they come from the 10th century. But it's really challenging. But we learned in our last project now, in this King and Conqueror, that I felt I was the most unwilling and uncooperative person in the world, because I think casting basically hated me, because I was like, no, all the time. And because of this, because I was so strict, especially with the men, we managed, I hope, to create this world and the canvas and the like I said before, the scenography. Because if I had been like, okay, it's okay, let's have the guys with the short undercut and all this.
And the facial tattoos.
Yeah, and would have completely destroyed our world. And it was very hard to always have to fight and say, like, you know, I need this to be like this, because they were just like, we don't have these people in Iceland. But we managed, I think, and then I could do little compromises here and there.
But usually we share our mood boards of extras, look books. We share a table of how we need their size chart, what sizes we have in our costumes from and to, and
you share them with the casting
director.
Yes,
with the casting director, yes.
Yeah.
So that's really our way of...
Yeah, and sometimes you are more involved with the casting. An example I have from a children's movie in Norway, where they wanted to create 7 brothers from the age of 90 to 190. And then they asked me, so what do you need? And I made them a budget, and they screamed. And they said, fainted. And they said, well, we will just have to try to cast them. And I said, good luck. And they asked me, do you want to be involved in the casting process? I said, yes, I can. And then they sent me tapes of old men that could act or remember their lines. And they said, what can you do with him? And I said, nothing really. I mean, maybe put a beard, but he will never look older than 90, right? So after they'd gone through all the old Norwegian actors that could act and remember their lines, they gave up and they gave me the money to do it. So it's good to involve the makeup designer if there's anything that, if you're doing period or fantasy or maybe lookalikes or something like that. I recommend it.
And we make lists of what we don't want, like tattooed eyebrows or lip fillers and stuff like that. Wasn't popular in 1066.
Yeah, sure. Any more questions?
Kristen, you had a question.
Wrap it up.
Oh, okay.
Okay. There was one in the back there.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what the topic is, really. I mean, is it a post-apocalyptic thing? Is it a completely new world? Is it based on, I mean, what is the situation in the world? And then you need to see what the character is, what the story is, where, what you need to portray and help the character to be and become. So then you need to kind of find that characteristic and probably sit down and start to draw something spectacular. And then sometimes you kind of, I think it's very good to kind of sit down with the director and the script and find an essence of the world and how complicated the world needs to be. Is it a very simple thing, or is it a very complicated thing where you are constantly making something new? So it's all based on the script. It's hard to say. Sometimes you would maybe use something really, really old to create something completely new.
Yeah. It's exciting, though.
Yes.
Yeah, I would love to do that.
Great. Yeah. Okay.
Looking back on the 4 films and 2 series that you've done together, do you have both the same favorite, or do you have different favorites? Where you found the most expression or freedom, or you have the same favorite, or
my favorite tends to be the job I'm doing, the one I'm deep in. It's hard to have a favorite child, you know. It's they all have their pros and their cons, and I have good feelings towards every
and then you
one.
I think you experience it differently when you're in it, and then when you look back at it.
Yeah.
Like when we look back at Welcome to Utmark, I was definitely my favorite, because you see the result and you. It's just such a lovely group of characters that it's not very often you get this opportunity to create like this for a modern show. So for our collaboration, I think that was, but when we were in it, I remember it, we were also struggling a lot, you know?
Yeah,
So
I mean, I remember a lot of lot of pain. I mean,
yeah.
No, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, it's different to look back.
Yeah.
You know,
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the
But
best.
then you're always so proud of your children, and they're performing so well.
Yeah. Bjarke, you had a question.
I'm thinking about like tattoos. Let's say you're a main actor and it has like big tattoos. It's hard to cover them up. Let's say you're supposed to be in the
Yes. That's why I did initially say like that's not possible. We cannot have anybody with tattoos. And then you have a group of 20, 30 stunt guys that they all fight in this club called Mjolnir. And they're all tattooed, more or less.
One of them from ankle.
Yeah. Oh, yes, that's
almost to his forehead.
That was a challenge. Yeah.
That was a challenge.
Yeah, there was a lot of balaclavas, I can tell you.
And then it's a collaboration between us. I have to go to her like, oh God, please, can they wear clothes and not be naked? Yeah.
You have a hat.
And that's for a big series like that, for like this King and Conqueror, where we had all together, how many extras? Hundreds and hundreds. And it's like, that really offers us a lot of challenges in terms of sizes and haircuts and tattoos and rings and, you know, all this stuff. This is almost, I would say, I mean, I think I said a couple of times to the producer, this is not possible. It's not.
But I also want to emphasize on that note that the people you are getting us to work with is very essential to the whole thing. It's really creating the world. And I think that extras are just as important as main actors in that sense.
I'm just thinking there are so many actors that have lots of tattoos now, really good actors.
Yeah.
And then you want them for a lead role.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the things we struggled with in Touch, because Pálmi, who is not an actor, but the young guy, he didn't only have tattoos, he had homemade tattoos. And homemade tattoos are three-dimensional. So they stick out of the skin. And in the end, I was like, I can't do anything more. So they had to do it in post.
Yeah. There's a lot done in VFX.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, because time flies.
Yes.
If to wrap it up, could you tell us what you're doing now before we say goodbye?
I am working on Helga Hafþórsdóttir first feature film called The Fires, and currently shooting. I can see there's some phone calls and updates from set.
Also based on a novel.
Based on a novel about a volcanic eruption on the Reykjanes Peninsula.
I am kind of unemployed, but I'm going tomorrow to Athens to work on a Palestinian movie. This is very exciting, but it's only, I'm flown in to work on a prosthetic aging part of the movie for the lead actress. So that's very cool.
Yeah.
And then I'm just waiting for what's our next one gonna be?
Maybe mine.
Yeah, maybe yours.
Yes. We'll see.
Hopefully we can get some more money into the
film fund. Okay, thank you so much. And thank you for coming.
Thank you all for coming.